Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Did you see that Nikki Haley lost in Nevada to nobody? Late Night talked about it. We're also talking about it on our political podcast. That's called Ballots. Haley got 30% of the vote, which was less than none of these candidates. Steve Colbert said Nikki Haley's campaign message is, nobody's better than me, and Nevada agreed. She also lost to Nevada candidates, not feeling it today, and gonna be a no from me, dog. Kibble, you know how they say you're second to none? She finished second to none. I like the idea that people took the time to wait in line to vote for the candidates and picked none of these candidates. It's like going to Wendy's and yelling, nothing for me, thanks. Seth Meyers. Even worse, she actually came in third behind none of these candidates. And no, seriously, not you, Nikki. My, that's fun. All right. Hey, Johnny Mac, what's a special and what's an hour? Well, I'll tell you what's a special. Katt Williams live on Netflix. I cannot wait for this. May 5th, 10 p.m. Eastern. Katt Williams will perform live at the YouTube Theater in Inglewood, California. The special is unnamed, but I mean, come on, coming after that last interview where he trashed everybody, including you, listener. Cannot wait for that. May 5th, Netflix, Katt Williams live. Awesome. A weird one came out on Wednesday night, sometime after 6 p.m. Eastern. Fortnite was like, yeah, Trevor Noah's producing a new comedy special in Fortnite, and it's on now. Now, there have been mixed reports about this. In the end, Trevor's not actually in this thing. He's, quote unquote, producing it. That's often industry code for, hey, can we attach your name to something and give you money so we get more press for it and you don't actually do anything? For example, watch Star Trek Discovery and count how many producers there are. 21 by my count. Anyway, Trevor Noah is producing a new stand-up comedy special. Fortnite Joke Night has launched. If you need the island code, it's 6296-7829-6524. Hope you had a pen in your hand. If not, that 15-second rewind button comes in handy. Or just go to the Epic Pick section of the Discovery page. It features performances from Matthew Broussard, who's great, Preacher Lawson, Scott Sace, and Marsha Belsky. A Suit, who's not Trevor Noah, said each comedian delivers a motion-captured performance delivered in a Fortnite outfit against the backdrop of a digitally rendered comedy club. Trevor Noah, in a statement, supposedly said, with Joke Night Royale, we're blending two things my mom never wanted me to get into, comedy and gaming. I'm excited to step into this uncharted territory, breaking down traditional barriers and offering a fresh, dynamic way for fans to experience comedy. I think the idea is actually cool, but I'm old. I'll check in with my son to see what he thinks of all this. Fortnite has already done performances from the likes of Travis Scott and Eminem. Comedy's an expansion of that. I like it. The AV Club points out, while the trailer announces the show and it drops Trevor Noah's name, it doesn't feature Trevor Noah, it doesn't feature Trevor Noah's voice, nor does it feature a Fortnite approximation of Trevor Noah. So I got my wish. The Joe Rogan podcast is back available over the wall. You don't have to use the Spotify app. I was using Pocket Cast and I enjoyed some Joe Rogan with Aaron Rodgers. And man, I shared in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group, maybe a year or two ago. Tim Heidecker did a parody of the Joe Rogan podcast where he and his crew were talking conspiracies. That's what this Aaron Rodgers interview talked about. They were just running through the conspiracies, COVID, RFK, Epstein Island, UFOs, and just switching topics like 3 conspiracies a minute. I'm not exaggerating. Listen to it. They'll be in the middle of a UFO conversation and suddenly we're on Epstein Island and then back to COVID. I don't know what's going on. I don't think there was a single question about football. Aaron Rodgers mentioned a couple times what he does for a living. I think the word Super Bowl was said once, but it is not a football interview. And I'm sure the Jets were thrilled that Aaron Rodgers is on the Joe Rogan Experience, available wherever you get your podcasts. Marc Maron has John Oliver on. I haven't gotten to listen to that. I'm excited. NBC got in on the Shane Gillis controversy. They write, with Shane Gillis's return to SNL, Asians ask when they'll stop being the punchline. They quote one Asian American comedian as saying, there's an idea that Asians will take it and have to just be obedient and have a smile on our face. Dylan Adler, an LA-based Asian American comedian, is quoted as saying, there's a feeling of it being swept under the rug, anti-Asian jokes being viewed as benign or not having real-life effects and consequences on people when it's not the case. I meant to tell you yesterday, I saw the clip of Shane Gillis making jokes about Chinatown, and I wanted to share it, but there's just so many F-bombs in it. I'd have to just machete it and it just wouldn't translate at all. Now, my take, I'm going to be consistent here. I think Shane is dropping into a character to illustrate how absurd the character is. It's almost like Archie Bunker. So how do you do Archie Bunker without actually saying horrible things? At some point, comedy's comedy and we got to joke about something, everybody. NBC loaded their article, Gillis, who's been embraced by right-wing viewers for his anti-woke comedy, was fired from SNL. We've recapped that. Just Tom, an Asian American stand-up comedian and actor, said from 2018-ish to right now, casting has become more diverse, but because the image changed, it allowed people like straight white men to believe that now they're the alternative voice, they're the little guy who's punching up against the diverse powers that be. Dylan Adler says, what comedy's supposed to do is surprise you. When I hear that, that isn't surprising, it's not interesting, it's not nuanced, and it does feel lazy to me. Fair point here, there's so many talented, incredible Asian comedians and actors they haven't had on the show yet. I can't believe they haven't had Margaret Cho host the show, or someone like Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh would be a good choice. Margaret Cho, why would Margaret Cho host SNL in 2024? Anyway, we'll be talking about that one for another week, and SNL in the news during a Taylor Swift Super Bowl week. Club Shay Shay continues to make major comedy news. Monique is on the latest episode, and Men's Journal recapped it and says Monique has not forgotten a 2018 GQ interview in which Tiffany Haddish made comments about Monique when Monique accused Netflix of racial and gender bias after she was paid less for a stand-up special compared to other comedians such as Dave Chappelle and Amy Schumer. Let me jump in there. Yeah, you're paid less than Dave Chappelle. I mean, at some point, please be realistic. Chris Rock's going to get paid better than Todd Barry. Let's just be realistic. What are you talking about? Tiffany Haddish at that time said, my business run different than her business. I don't live her life. I don't have that husband of hers. I'm looking at how Netflix opened up so many opportunities for black females in comedy. When my people are dying, that's when you're going to catch me protesting. I'm not going to protest because somebody got offered not the amount of money they wanted to get offered. If you don't like what they're offering you, just no longer do business with them. That seems reasonable to me based on what I just said. Monique questioned why black women continue to throw each other under the bus. On the podcast, she said, well, I don't do business like Monique do business, and I'm glad I don't have that husband of hers. Monique responded to that and said, Tiffany, if you had a husband like mine, you might not have 2 DUIs. If you had a husband like mine, you may not be caught up in what looks like you could have been grooming a child. Men's Journal reminds us the latter comment references a controversial comedy skit Tiffany appeared in alongside Ari Spears in 2022 titled Through a Pedophile's Eyes. It led to a lawsuit. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed. Haddish apologized for the skit. Kamail Nanjiani opened up about the mental stress created by being in The Eternals. He was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast and said, the reviews were bad and I was too aware of it. I was reading every review and checking too much. It was really, really hard because Marvel thought that movie was going to be really, really well reviewed. So they lifted the embargo early and put it in some fancy movie festivals, and they sent us on a big global tour to promote the movie right as the embargo lifted. I think there was some weird soup in the atmosphere for why that movie got slammed so much, and I think not much of it has to do with the actual quality of the movie. It was really hard, and that's what I thought was unfair to me and unfair to my wife, Emily, and I can't approach my work this way anymore. Some stuff has to change, so I started counseling. I still talk to my therapist about that. Emily says I do have trauma from it. We actually just got dinner with somebody else from that movie, and we're like, that was tough, wasn't it? And he's like, yeah, that was really tough. And I think we all went through something similar. At the Griot Awards, Kevin Hart recognized Eddie Murphy as one of the greatest comedians of all time. He said the idea of performing in big venues came from watching you on that lens of, what the hell, this stage is attached to a laugh, and in a demand where this rock star-like idea was attached to comedy because of the work you did. You made it look good, you made it look cool. In my time, I wanted that, and you opened the doors for me to do a version of that. He also praised pioneering comedians, including Steve Harvey for his contributions in the original Kings of Comedy, Cedric the Entertainer, Bernie Mac, and DL. Kevin said, the Kings of Comedy was such a dope thing for comedy. We started to expand the lens of how comedy should be perceived. I swear to you, I am thankful and humbled for what you guys have allowed me to do. The baton gets passed, and I don't take it for granted. Jeff Dye is recording his special tonight and tomorrow at the Electric Jane in Nashville. You may know Jeff from the NBC show Better Late Than Never, where he follows Henry Winkler, William Shatner, Terry Bradshaw, and George Foreman as Jeff creates for them the adventure of a lifetime. Shatner's been to space. Hashtag 6 seasons and a movie. Donald Glover tells the Hollywood Reporter, Dan Harmon told me what he wanted, and I was like, this sounds great. This is the Community movie he's talking about here. It's a college reunion, but Abed is like this big director now, and basically this is his magnum opus. I'm like, this sounds effing tight. And I was very sad to see my friend Mojo Nixon passed away at age 66. You may know Mojo. He had a minor novelty hit back in the 80s called Elvis is Everywhere. A statement announcing the news on his Facebook page, and this is So Mojo, wrote, Mojo has left the building. Mojo Nixon, real name Neil Kirby McMillan Jr., I didn't know that, died after suffering a cardiac event during an outlaw country cruise in which he was a performer. The Facebook post reads, "How you live is how you should die." Mojo Nixon was full tilt, wide open, rock hard, root hog, quarter on two wheels, plus on fire. Passing after a blazing show, a raging night, closing the bar, taking no prisoners, and a good breakfast with bandmates and friends. A cardiac event on the outlaw country cruise is about right, and that's just how he did it. Mojo has left the building. Since Elvis is everywhere, we know he was waiting for him in the alley out back. Heaven help us all. Mojo was a good guy, larger than life, fun, always in a good mood. I just loved being around him. I worked with him on Blue Collar Radio a little bit. He hosted some NASCAR stuff for us, but, super awesome guy. Mojo Nixon was 66. See you tomorrow.